Hello and welcome to this video by Synced Stories, and my name is Chris, and we are going to talk about layer organization. How do I arrange my layers? How do I set it up so that I can have a nicely working environment to return to over and over when I create my panels. So this is for comic book creators, this video, and we are going to inspect one of my panels here from page 8 of Unlimited Danger Season 1, Episode 1. Right, so what we are talking about is this publication here. I have a screenshot here somewhere. Where is it? Here it is. Okay, so this is the first comic book, and it's a printed album. It's not just a US comic book in small format. This is US letter, and it's good printing and all that. So 987 degrees centigrade, it's full color, it's 40 pages, and it's full action science fiction thriller adventure starring Barry Riley, as we can see here down in the right hand corner. So this is the production underhand now, so it will take many months more to actually finish it up, but we have a very good pace now, and we have a good method, and we have a good workflow and all that, and that helps incredibly to get the speed up, and to get the motivation, and to get the happiness that we all are looking for. So this is the what we're aiming for, and as you can see here on the back cover, we have 8 installments, we have 8 episodes, we have 8 comic books in the pipeline. So we have 987 degrees centigrade as the pilot number, so to speak, and then we have Collision Course Earth, the Open Source Force, the Alien Signal, Forbidden Territory, the Power of Colloidiana, Countdown, Genesis, and the Final Battle. So these are the exciting volumes that you may be on the lookout for in the coming years, because you don't do a comic book in a couple of weeks, at least not in this style that I'm doing here, because we're doing 15 panels a page, so that ends up with something like 600 panels we have to do in order to complete just one album here. So it's a process, and we know what we're doing, and we are now on track. So let's go back now here to the topic of this video, which is organization. So this is Photoshop, of course, and this is the panel here, and we're going to talk about these folders here to the left here in this layout, in this panel, in the layers panel. So one thing before we start is that whatever I'm showing you here is what I do, and perhaps you are not there's some aspect of this that you want to do differently, or of course, I mean, you can do whatever you like. But this is just a sort of like an overview of what I do, and then you can fine-tune it to suit your own needs, or you can skip everything if you don't like any of it. So it's all up to you, and I'm just showing you what I have found out in my own process here that works for me. Okay, so the first thing perhaps I should show you is that well, the premise of this whole discussion is that there is an output, and the output I place here in the results folder. So this is the merged, flattened, so to speak, result that's coming out, which is the result of all these folders down here. So I have combined these layers inside each of these folders in a certain way. You can see here I'm on the left here, I'm showing you what's in these folders, and I have combined them to the result up here. So the objective, we can say, whenever I'm starting to work on a new panel, my end goal is always to come to these three different layers. And here I have three different layers because I am preparing three different editions, and perhaps even more editions, because UD11 or 987 degrees centigrade is a production, it's a comic book that is going to be printed in the first instance. It's not about selling PDFs on Comixology or something like, or on Amazon. It's about selling printed full color books. But even then, I may decide to have different editions. You can have the sort of normal edition, which is this edition here with the mix colors, which I call them. But then I may end up having one edition here with the base colors, which aren't so fancy, but it's sort of like more for kids, perhaps, who may not always appreciate the more like watercolor-like production here. So, and then we have another in black and white. So you can have, I can do a color book here with this, or I can do, so I have always these three: the black and white, the base colors, and the mix colors, or the artist colors. You can call them whatever you like, but it's more, should not say refined, but it's something like that. It's more elaborate. It's more fine-tuned. All right, so this is the objective. So these I always save inside the panel. Of course, I export them to other documents when I'm building the page, when I'm building my row, and then from the row to the core page with all the rows. So, but I like to have everything arranged like this, because ultimately it's about results. So we always want to produce the result, which are these three in my case. But of course, having these in, for instance, in mixed colors, now I can simply use grayscale also. I can, or I can do a grayscale from this one, whatever I like. It's very simple, but I can do that later on when I have when the whole page is built. So if I want to convert to grayscale, I can do that in the what I call core document, where I have all the rows and all the 15 panels. So I don't have to do it for each panel also. Okay, so that's I think that's good. So that is the objective of making a new panel. I should always have a result here as the final, when I'm saving the file when I'm finished. Another thing which is good in my organization is I can save the old results. So if I now want to, let's say I take an old result, the result immediately preceding this one, it looks like this. And now I can compare the old one with the new one. So I've made some small adjustment in color here. And we can do the same. You can see, maybe, I'm not sure you can see it in the video here, but when I'm clicking now up here, the new one is more grayish and a little less color in it. So I have probably adjusted it with the hue in Photoshop here, and I have probably removed some saturation, -10 perhaps, or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but that's probably what I did. I don't remember. It's just all these adjustments, thousands of adjustments. So I can't remember all what I did, but I have saved it. So that's a good thing. So I can always revert and go back to my previous results that I had printed out. Mostly I do this, I print them out. Okay, so you can have one folder for each collection of old results. And here's another one, old results. Had previously, let's see, check that out. And what is the difference? I don't know. Well, there's also a slightly different color. That's the only, but of course I could change everything. So if I wanted to add some new detail in the background or remove some disturbing detail, maybe this one here is interfering with the corner here of the balloon or something, or maybe this line here is cutting across this balloon tail here. Perhaps if it were down here, for instance, I could adjust it and move it so that there are no such strange intersections and all these things. There's so many details, so many lines, and so many aspects of each illustration that could be changed. I mean, there could be thousands of changes that I could do even now, but there's also a time. Everything takes time, and my philosophy is also that it has to be reasonably simple. So I'm not like those guys who love cross-hatching or something like that, or love shadowing, or there are so many styles of illustration. I'm more like the Tintin style, the Asterix style, the more the perhaps we can call it the European style of comic books. So that's what I like. All right, so we have the results folder now, which we have talked about. I can close this, and we have the old results folders, so you can have as many as you like. And the good idea is that here you can describe them also, what you did or how they are related to the new one, and you can number them some other system if you like. All right, so that's that. So these are the production, so to speak, that we're looking for. But in order to accomplish the production, we need lots of help not documents, but help layers. And one of the most important help layers we need is this one, which I call row rect. And this is the, let's see, zoom out here. This is the exact template for a row. And I have other documents in which I use these exact dimensions as well in the same scale. So all such row rects are equally big. And so the objective then is, for me, is that I have to produce a panel. Let's say I'm pressing the M for the marquee tool now, and I'm zooming in a little bit. So the idea is simply that I have to produce a frame that is this high. So the panel, whatever panel it is, if it's a narrow panel, it should look like this. If it's a wider panel, it should look like this. And if it's a panel that sort of stretches all over the whole row, then it should be, of course, it should be exactly like the red line. So it should extend all the way like that. So each of those three sort of, I mean, there are an unlimited number of sizes you could choose, but you know, big, medium, or narrow, all of these are possible, and all of these could be described as a panel, and they could all fit into this document. And this is perhaps a good place also to say that many comic book creators are they are using a layout as a they use a comic book page, if it's 10 by 17 or A3 or whatever format it is. They're sort of using the same technique as the old school comic book used to do, like when you have on a paper, you have your Bristol board and you have your 10 by 17 or 10 by 15, and then you draw everything on the same page, and that of course is fantastic if you can do it, if you can actually enjoy the process of having a very big piece of paper, and if you can enjoy the process of having to draw everything on the same page, I mean, including what could happen if something gets wrong, you know, if something happens and you ink, you spill it over the whole board and you ruin 13 panels. I don't know, so many things could happen, and you sort of, one panel you can't sort of, it doesn't do what you want to do, or suddenly you discover that you want to insert the panel where the old one was, but how do you do that, and all these. Of course, online or if you're doing it in Photoshop, there's no problem of substituting. But the whole idea is still that what I'm doing, I've sort of taken my liberty of using panels as a sort of like a working space. So I say that each panel should be completed on its own, because I can do that because I have very detailed drawings that I do before I do the panel. So I have this system of detailed rows and detailed panels that are developed before I begin this document. So I know exactly what I'm going to write, I know exactly what I'm going to draw, I know exactly what the lettering, I know the balloon, I know the like that. So I don't have to have the I don't have, so what I'm trying to say is that when I enter this document, as you're looking at now, the finished panel document, at that time the exact dimensions of the panel is decided. So it's not that I start changing that later on. That is already determined. So I know exactly how big the balloon should be. I know exactly how wide the panel frame should be, and like that. So there's no I don't have to mess with that on this level. That work is already done. So okay, so let's continue here. We have the row rect, and then of course we have the row rect center also as well. So if I zoom out here, we can see there's a center. So whenever I put my frame in here, it will hopefully now take the finished frame here. So the frame will be centered around this line here, horizontally speaking. And of course it will always have the height here that the red line is indicating. Now there's also another aspect here I show you here, is that I'm not drawing these frames here. What you see here, this is not drawing in Photoshop. This is a drawing I made on paper. So just so because that's what I'm doing. I'm drawing everything on paper. I'm lettering on paper. I'm drawing balloons on paper. I'm drawing the figures and the illustrations on paper. I'm drawing the frames on paper. So that's the whole my setup. So I'm more like old school in that sense. But the good thing that I have developed is that this is a modular system. So although I'm drawing on paper, I'm not drawing on any 10 by 17 because I don't like working on that. I'm drawing on A4 copying paper. A4, of course, is a European format, and US letter is the approximate size in North America. So I'm using A4 when I'm drawing each panel, which is much more handy. I like it. I can scrap it easily. I don't care how, if I do a mistake, and I just toss it in the bin and I take another one. And so it's very, very good to not have this pressure of having to sort of be very careful and all that, and it's Bristol paper and it's expensive, and if I mess up and it's blah 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 and all that. So it's very liberating, I would say. It's very liberating to use copying paper and then a small copying paper. So instead of a big clumsy Bristol, I use a cheap portable small piece of paper that is much more sort of casual, and it's much more I'm more at ease with that process. So I like it very, very much. It's really working for me. All right, so we have these guys here, and then I have a third one here that I'm usually working on, using a lot, and that is the X-flats frame. This is a helping document here. And the X-flats frame, okay, now we can hide the real frame like that. So the X-flats frame I'm using when I'm preparing the color plates. And we can talk about that. I can show you just, so here is the X-flats line art. Okay, so this is a line art so here's everything everything from my original drawing that some of it I've corrected and some of it I just skipped. And when I'm using the X-flats frame, I'm sort of imposing a frame here, which I'm using to auto flattening. So I'm using Krita, the program, the free open source Krita program to auto generate the color plates. But that requires that my document contains closed lines. That's what I have to have. I have to have closed lines. So if I take the hand tool here, I just pressed H on the keyboard. I take the hand tool, we can see that there is closed lines. There are closed lines. So here, for instance, the black here reaches the frame here, and the black line from the safety belt also here, and another safety belt comes here down, and that one as well. So you have, so this is what I call X flats, and I call them X flats because they are external flats. So I'm not using Photoshop to process those documents, but instead I use Krita, Krita. It's a French open source program. So these are essential for my workflow. So that's a good idea to sort of dive into if you can. Okay, so we have the X flats, right? Okay, we have described those frames there, and of course the whole idea here with the X flats frame is that compared to the size of the real frame, the X flats frame must be bigger in all directions here, because the color plates must extend a little bit on all sides. Okay, so that's just what I do. Okay, so we have the temp grids and frames. Okay, so let's go back to the real frame here. So I have that selected now, the real frame, and I want to look at something which I called merged line art. So this is my merged line art. This is the result of other layers that I have. And in this case I have produced this merged line art here, this layer, with the help of this one, probably layer 14, and this one. So if we let's hide this one for now, and we can, let's see what we have visible here. Right, so this should actually be locked. I have probably forgot it, but okay. So I have a foreground and I have a background, and these I merge just by selecting those two there, and then I do a Control-Alt-E. That produces the merged while still keeping these layers. So it's not that they disappear, these two layers, but they create another one, and then I just move it up into the merged line art folder. And here of course you can have many layers, many folders here. You can have line art foreground, you can have line art middle ground, you can have line art left and line art right, and you can have different ways of different folders depending on what images you want to have in the pictures, or what parts you want to compose your whole picture with. So there are but I think it's very nice, this whole thing with Photoshop. You can draw in one layer and refine it, and then you can sort of switch to a new layer and then draw something else in the upper left or in the bottom right or something like that, or so it's very useful. And then of course merging them together as the last step. So that's the line art, and then what we do, of course, in comics is that we have a line art, and we have opacity or transparency, should I say. We have it on, so we have it. The line art is multiply, right? So it's transparent. So whatever we put below, we get the colors. And that's the whole trick. Or so therefore we want the colors always to be below the line art. So line art above and colors below. And this is the result, but before that I had some other versions, right? So I can refine them gradually, and this is the automated result from Krita that I was talking about before. So if I go up here again, and I'll show you this once more. If I just can produce this X flats with this frame here, if I just can have this, and I send it to Krita, I open it in Krita and apply some filters or apply some effects, I can get this. So this is what I get, the colored. I'll single this out here. I'm pressing Alt key on my Windows keyboard, and I'm clicking on the visibility icon, and then you go solo. You only see that layer. And then if I do the same again, I restore all the other layers. So I'll do that again now. But so this is the result from Krita. This is my X flats. And then when I have that, I just copy it and name it color instead. And then I start exchanging those X flats color with the real colors, with the real base colors, I should say. And then when I replace the base colors with something I like, then I also do other effects. So I put another effect on there like that, and then I mix it with the merged line art and put the frame on. And then of course I compose in between here, above the line art. This is important. Above the line art I do my balloons and my text and my captions. And let's look at that. And that looks like this. This is a typical balloon. And you can see here that it is handmade, of course. It's handmade. It's little wiggly and little not perfect, which is exactly what I want, because my my idea here is that it has to be somewhat imperfect in order for it not to look like it was made with a computer or not made with Photoshop. It should look like it wasn't made with Photoshop. So it shouldn't be exactly round or exactly flat or exactly rectangular. It should be a little small defects here and there. Not too much, not too little. So it has to be perfectly imperfect. That is my design goal. Perfectly imperfect. So that it looks natural, human, approachable, cozy, all these good words. So that's my sort of idea here, that we don't want computer generated ovals or something like that. What we want is a little shaky lines, a little, not too much, not too little, like that. All right, so we have the balloon now, and of course there are many things I can say about how to design the balloons and how to adjust them and how to fix them up if they are not perfect. If they're not perfectly sized, for instance. So maybe the text turned out to be too, didn't cover the whole width of the balloon and all that. So many things we can say about that. But for now, let's just add the text here. And the text alone looks like this. I'm doing again the Alt key down, and I'm clicking on the visibility here. So this is the text which lies above the balloon. So the balloon is under, the text is over. And then what I do simply is that I combine them, I merge them like that. So Control Alt E here, and then I turn up, I get my merged balloon here, which looks like this. So what I did effectively here was that first I merged these two and produced this one, and then I actually erased with the magic eraser, which I have on N shortcut on the keyboard here. And so I just clicked N here. Oh, it's locked here, so unlock it. Okay, and it looks like this. The magic, I think it's called a magic eraser. So unlike the magic wand, where you first have to sort of click and to apply this, to get a selection, and then you can delete. But the magic eraser just does everything with just one click. So you just click once and everything's gone, except the balloon itself, of course. So this is transparent background here, and we have this floating balloon floating over the line art and floating over the colors and like that. And the frame, of course, also is like that. So the frame is above the balloon, also floating with a transparent background. So this is how I have organized it. And then, of course, to actually do the text and the balloons, I have guides here. So I have a template here for where the text should go, and you can see I've followed it pretty good. And of course this template here, these lines, they represent the small letters and the big letters, which but you, I mean, that of course depends on the typeface or the font you're using. So you have to experiment with how should I manually letter my comic. So you have to sort of find your style. So should you use I mean, for one consideration, of course, should I use all caps? I mean, should it be all caps, like the American style of comics? So I tried with that in the beginning, but I didn't like it. So I'm using the more European style of lettering here. So, and I have developed this style myself. This typeface is my own, of course. So so I have simply adjusted these lines here to accommodate how my typeface should look. And so if you have a typeface which has a different X height here, then you should have your own lines accordingly. So then you have to move down the X line. If your O's are smaller, for instance, or your I's are smaller, your E's are smaller, your N's are smaller, perhaps, and then you should of course. So I'm just using this because my typeface is having an X height like this. All right, and then that's one, and then we have some. Okay, and I should say that also that the green line above and below here designates the height of the balloon that should fit in, as you see here. So so that fits perfectly. And then we have these others. These are help lines, and you can see if I blow them up a little bit, when I am actually placing the text inside the balloon, I have these vertical lines here that tell me that, okay, I need to save this white space in the balloon so that the text doesn't come out here, because I want to have a white frame, so to speak, inside the balloon there. So then I can move. So I can grab I'm keeping Shift button down on my keyboard here, and I can just drag it and to sort of make it drag it vertically here, or horizontally, sorry, so that it fits with the balloon I'm drawing. Okay, so there is the exact there, and then I just drag the text so that the left aligning happens here, approximately like this. And it should be the same on the right hand side. So if I check there like that, and that's the same here. So this is also movable, right? So okay, so I think that describes some of these things. And then of course I have something which I call the last panel frame template. And that is a special sort of special fix I'm doing for if the panel I'm working on is the last panel on the row, then I may need to fix it a few pixels, and here I'm this panel I'm here. This is panel A1, and so this is the first panel on the row, not the last one. So here I'm not using any frame template at all because I don't need to adjust it in that way, but I may have to adjust it. So first, so an example of this is if I have my made, if I already have adjusted the frame like this, and I have the row rect like that, then if it is the last panel on the page or on the row, I may have to adjust either the right hand side or the left hand side a few pixels. And this folder here, what I do is I import from somewhere else, from another document, another we can say another frame. We can play with the idea that you just have another frame, and then I do that I'm placing over. So we can just use this as an example here. So let's say that this is the adjusted frame. What I'm doing now is I'm simply resizing it down to the height, the correct height. So this is the adjusted frame. Let's say we're just playing with it like that, and now we're hiding the X-flat frame. So now we have this configuration. So what I'm doing normally then is that I'm just resizing the real frame like this. So in this case I'm expanding it on to the right. So what I'm doing here is then I'm just copying this, something like this, and pasting it, and then I'm just moving this because I have to have the exact same width of the line, something like that. I think that's pretty good. And then I just erase. Well, I'm just doing it not the right way now here, but just quick. We just do it like this, just as an example. Oh no, we should not do it on that layer. We should do it. Let's merge them. I hope we have something there. Oh, something disappeared. Something happened. Okay. what happened. So we do it again. Anyway, the idea is that we are simply, let's remove that to go back to the original frame, and we are, let's do the cutting and copying here. But the idea is that simply that we can move, let's say that we want to make it smaller instead. It's simpler, so just copy the part of the frame and then just move it a few steps to the left, and then I merged those together into this new one, and there it is. And alone it should look like this. And now the difference is the new one is there and the old one was there. So the old one was wider, and now it's somewhat smaller, or it's less wide. So that's why I'm using the last panel frame template to make a small adjustment. So getting ahead of the game, so to speak, is that we have to learn all the pieces of the puzzle. So whatever could happen, we always have a workflow. We always know what we should be doing if something happens. So that's why it's good to have a folder like that, the last panel frame template, if we need it. So if we if this happens to be the last panel on the row, then we use it, and we have a folder already waiting for it. So it's not a last minute fix. It's the deliberate, planned thing that we are executing, and we know what we're doing by having this folder in the first place, because it reminds us that whenever we are working with the frame, we have to say, oh, is this the last panel on the row? Oh, it's the last panel on the row. Okay, then I should do this. So it's very handy to have them close together, so that we remind ourselves to fabricate, because we have to make the frame template somewhere else, right? So we have to import it from somewhere else, but we also have to go to that other place and manufacture it in the first place to know how many pixels wider or how many pixels narrower we should make it. So all right, so I think that sums it up, and we have, as usual, a quick reminder here at the end of the video, where we just talk about the 987 degrees centigrade one more time, and we are very proud that the production is going very well, and that it really is a lot of adventure, a lot of conflict, a lot of romance, a lot of how should I say, a lot of dialogue, but not too much dialogue. It's just because it should be action. It should not be lots of thought balloons and like that. We should have action. We should have short and snappy and well edited text that's easy to read and easy to understand, and also with the flow of the panels. So the idea is not that we should stop at each panel and read 5,000 words in 5 different balloons in each panel, but instead we have a minimum of balloons and minimum of text, and we have many panels, so we get the flow. That's very important, that we get a flow. We get the rhythm going when we are reading as a reader. So which I think is one of the most frequent problems, even in mainstream comics. I mean, even if Marvel or DC or Image or most other, I mean, even Tintin has too much text, too much balloons, too many balloons, and too much text. And I think that it's very important that we get up the speed, and we don't stop in each panel and spend half a minute reading it, but instead we take a second or 2 or 3, and then we go to the next panel and like that at the max, so we get the flow as a reader, so we can keep getting into the plot and into the conflicts and into the story and into this science fiction reality powerhouse that is 987 degrees centigrade. Unlimited Danger, Season 1. And I'm Chris, and I'm hoping that you had a great time and have a great day. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.